Welcome, everybody. We're live. We're back with another AMA. As always, we're joined by the one and only Idan Zuckerman. Also, General Moore is here, and I'm X1 the Gamer. Thank you very much for being here, everybody. We are live streaming, actually, both to YouTube and to Twitch. This will be up live afterwards, so if you have to jump out and you're not able to stay for the whole thing, make sure you watch it back. Real quick, Dirk was not able to make it to this AMA. You might notice he's not here. He's actually traveling, but he wanted me to let you guys know he's really looking forward to the meetup that is happening in Frankfurt. If you've not RSVP'd to it, make sure you go do so in our German channel. Inside of Discord, we have over 20 players scheduled to come, and a location will be sent out to you guys shortly. So he's really looking forward to that. With that, we're going to get started. Here's how it's going to work today. General Moore is actually going to review everything that's in the roadmap. And then we'll take some questions. Players submitted questions beforehand via Discord, and we'll take some live questions here in chat. And then Idan will take that opportunity to answer those questions after we do the overview here. So with that, shall we jump into the overview, General Mort?
Yeah, let's hit it.
All right.
And hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello. Super excited to be talking to you guys about what's going on in Upland today. We did just drop our Q1 roadmap update. We are going to walk through it, but I do highly recommend you go read it. This is a pretty fun update. It's definitely kind of painting our picture, our vision for what cars and the Metaverse motor economy is going to look like, right? So we're kind of getting to the point where we're starting to build out these, unique ecosystems inside of Upland, where they kind of all will have their own economy in a sense. So let's go ahead and get into the Q1 highlights. Also, we want to welcome our team in Brazil. It's super exciting to add those development resources. So that's really going to empower our ability to, continue to hit on our roadmap objectives. So back in January, we had the Block Explorer Shop beta go live. This is awesome. This is the first time Metaventures actually land in the Upland Metaverse. So it's the first time that players actually get to have a really active part in the economy. So we're going to continue to grow that program through the rest of the year and basically provide, a ton of different opportunities to generate revenue in the Upland Metaverse. We also launched the community directory so players can discover all the communities that make, Upland special. We have a ton of amazing third-party communities that do different types of projects, analytics tools, banks, all kinds of amazing things. So definitely go check that out. Discover some of the coolest communities in Upland. We also initiated peer-to-peer UPX transfers, so players can actually send UPX to each other for the first time. We launched the 2021 Essential Shops, which lets players mint NFLPA Legit's Essentials directly from the stadium or fan shop. And then most recently started the Master Builders Contest, where we're going to let players actually design models for the Metaverse. So in each city across Upland, there are going to be a new model that's created by a player that's going to land in the world. So we're really trying to amp up our efforts to let players have an impact on how the world develops, how it looks, and how it feels. So by the way, voting did just start for phase 1. We will have more announcements later, but if you guys go to the Upland website on the events page, you can start voting right away. And then so far in March, we've kicked things off with the property collections visual rework. So if you guys noticed, your chips no longer cover your Block Explorer, which is something you guys have been asking for forever. So we're really excited to put that out. I think it looks amazing. It's been really awesome to kind of browse and actually get to see everybody's Explorers. It's kind of a refreshing experience in a sense. So, but that's all that has happened just in Q1. There will be more stuff to come out through the rest of the year. But let's jump into cars real quick. So we wanted to kind of paint the picture of what the vision for cars was, at least at a high level. So this is the future of transportation in Upland. Players are going to be able to travel via cars between cities, inside of cities, and also to cities that may be, inaccessible via other transportation methods, right? So first, we're talking about NFT manufacturing. So one really key aspect of NFT manufacturing, the first application will be cars, of course, but this is building an infrastructure for us to kind of continue to create different manufacturing processes, whether it be outdoor decor or other NFTs. This is going to serve as the infrastructure for all of that. So it's a really exciting development because it's not just about cars. It's really about so much more. So, as we get that out, we're going to continue to build new layers on top of all that and really start to grow the economy in kind of countless different ways. It's really an exciting time. So, once we have the first cars out, we're going to release more details about how players are going to be able to reserve that first batch, and then get prepared for racing, which of course I'm sure a lot of you are excited about. This is going to be our first like fully immersive Unity-based experience in the metaverse. It will have, it'll basically create a lot of content. Players are going to be able to come in, race kind of at any given time, and also empower a whole new dimension of the economy. You'll be able to launch Metaventures for different types of car products or car related services. So it's really going to enhance everybody's ability to kind of leverage the Upland ecosystem to generate UpX revenue, right? So that's at a high level, that's cars. We'll definitely talk a lot more about that. There's definitely a lot of questions that came in about cars. So I'll leave that to the expert in Idan, but we can talk a little bit more about directly what's going on in Q2 for the rest of the quarter. At the top, we do have, we're talking about Metaventures. So as I mentioned, we're really trying to expand Metaventure capabilities. We want players to be able to use the Upland ecosystem as a platform for them to build a brand, to build their own, business inside of the Upland Metaverse. So first, we're talking about showrooms. So as I mentioned, manufacturing will kind of serve as the infrastructure for that process. But showrooms are going to be a totally separate infrastructure there, right? For the selling, the direct selling, or on the secondary market for things like cars, outdoor decor, structural ornaments. So, again, just really capitalizing, or rather building on that infrastructure to continually expand those programs. Up next, directly with Metaventures, is going to be the NFLPA fan shop. So these are actually pretty close to deployment. We'll definitely have more details pretty soon, but we've already selected 40 new beta participants, and we're going to be launching the very first fan shops in the metaverse very shortly. And this is going to be the first secondary market opportunity for players who have been collecting NFLPA legits. So this is kind of a massive, introduction of the secondary market for legits, which is very exciting. Previously, the only way to trade them was through swapping. So now we're kind of really giving life to that economy. With the arrival of fan shops, we are also getting ready to deploy the venture dues model. So this means that everybody that is running a Metaventure will have to pay a dynamic fee monthly based on the median contribution to the community pool from all the Metaventures of that same type. I do highly recommend you go read about the venture dues model. If you guys aren't familiar with it, it is linked in the roadmap. So you can go and check that out and learn a little bit more about that thought process. Next, we're also getting ready to deploy sub-merchants for Metaventures. So this basically means that players will be able to list their items in other people's Metaventures for commission. So this means that basically Metaventure owners are going to be able to act as brokers on behalf of other players, basically, or consignment center, whatever you want to call it. Players can come to you and say, I want to list my Block Explorer, my legit in your shop, and they're going to take a small cut, for promotion, for branding, all that stuff. And then lastly, we are looking at opening the beta for the Block Explorer shop to all players. So this is going to let any willing Uplander launch their very own custom branded Block Explorer shop right inside the Upland Metaverse. So these are pretty substantial changes. This really is a shift over to the Metaventure economy and paving the way for the motor economy that's coming very soon. So next, we're jumping into NFLPA legits. We are getting ready to launch NFLPA legit collections. So we are actively working on it. Definitely will happen before next season. But once that does go live, players are going to be able to place their legits into collections and basically be able to boost their fan scores. So any legit that is held in that collection will have a multiplier applied to the base fan points. And then, of course, we're also working on other stuff like autographs and replicas in the background. So all those things are actively in development. For economic updates, we are getting ready to introduce the uncollected earnings accumulation cap. So we detailed some information on this in our economic update at the end of last year. But basically what we're going to do is introduce a cap to how much uncollected earnings you can have. So this is not a cap on your direct earnings. This is just a cap, basically meaning that if you don't collect your UpX for so long, once it hits a certain point, it'll just stop accumulating. So really you just have to log in and make sure that you collect that UpX before that happens. We're also looking at introducing collection holding periods. So we have a lot of feedback on collection swapping, and basically kind of some people have abused that mechanism. So we're getting ready to introduce a holding period. So players will be required to hold their collections for basically a fixed amount of time before they can actually capitalize on the bonuses for that collection, both the one-time bonus and the yield. So this should really curb that problem of too much collection swapping, and should kind of strengthen the value of UpX in the economy overall. We're also getting ready to, or rather exploring ways to start minting new UpX to the Upland community pool. And I'll let Don talk a little bit more about that in the question portion. We're also actively developing third-party developer tools. So this is actually one of my favorite and most exciting updates about this roadmap post, is that we are actually, building tools where third-party developers are going to leverage their Upland assets, of course, with consent from the users, but to basically build their own unique experiences and services using their Upland assets. This is a massive change for us, right? We keep talking about user-generated content and letting third parties kind of take part in the metaverse economy. This is the next step forward for that, right? It's kind of a critical layer to enabling everybody to really have a piece of the pie. Lastly on this list is the treasure hunting tier overhaul. So we're going to have more information on this very shortly, but we are going to basically announce a minor overhaul to treasure hunting tiers. We're going to expand the treasure hunting tiers and also do some reworking of the reward mechanisms as well as send fees. So do expect a change to send fees for not every city in Upland, but about half of them are going to see their send fees be adjusted. The last chunk of this list are features that are pending deployment. So these features are basically done. There's just a couple, some cleaning up to do before they go live. Reclaim uploads for the NFT portal, basically being able to port your assets back to the blockchain of origin. That is going to be going out soon. The Spark login bonus that we talked about at the end of last year. Basically, if player logs in consecutively for 7 days, they're going to get a variable Spark bonus. And then that's pretty much it for the rest of the update. So a lot going on. There definitely was not a small amount of things that just happened in Q1, but there's so much more to happen through the rest of Q2 and beyond. It's going to be a very exciting year, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting. There's a lot there. Ryan Miano actually in chat said, impressive optimization to the game. Amazing how much progress has been made. Congrats on all your efforts. Thank you very much, Ryan. Appreciate that. Ryan Miano is one of our first landmark owners, actually, if you guys remember. So congrats and good to see you, Ryan. Guys, we're going to take some questions. Again, we had some previously submitted. If you do want to read all the full details from the roadmap, I did just drop the link into chat. You can also at any time just go to our events page, upland.me/events, and you can see all the details on all our events happening, as well as any updates such as the roadmap update. Let's get into our first question. This was submitted by the one and only Abstract over on Discord. And he asks, will the players be able to manufacture vehicles at some point? Are we going to have to buy vehicles for USD, or will we also be able to purchase them for UPX?
Yeah. So first of all, hello everybody, and just wanted a quick shout out to all of the Uplanders that made it yesterday to our official South by Southwest panel here in Austin. It was pretty cool. Nice to see everybody and meet you guys in person. So if you're watching, again, thanks for showing up. Yeah. So a couple of questions there about cars and so the way it's going to work. First of all, cars can be purchased for either US dollars or UPX, and it depends on the party that sells it. The way that it's structured is that Uplanders will buy cars in what we call car showrooms, which are separated from the manufacturing process. So once any Uplander gets their hands on the cars, they can resell that either if it's the first sell after being manufactured, kind of like a brand new car, or if it's a used car in the secondary market through the same mechanism. So the showroom owner may list that car either for US dollars or UPX, again, similar to how all of our Metaventures work. So there's not going to be restrictions on how you can sell those cars. And then, David, just remind me a couple of the other questions there.
Yeah, manufacture vehicles and then USD or UPX, will they be able to purchase for?
Sure. So basically, I'm assuming a lot of Uplanders are curious about the ability to manufacture cars on their own, and we are actively working for the pathway to have that. And again, we want to enable a versatile, economy for both creators, entrepreneurs, and also existing car brands. And I think this is one of the beauties of Upland, because again, we are actively working on having real-world car brands participate in this economy and introduce their own cars into the metaverse. But we also want to allow creators to create their own brands and design their own cars eventually, and also manufacture them. And you can imagine, again, that may create a high versatility of the car market, where you may expect, the Ferraris of the world to cost a lot more than, a private player brand run car system. So I think we look at it as a good way. We would love those uplanders to get into that business of car design and production. The way it's going to work though is there would be some kind of like a spark investment required for what we kind of like metaphorically consider R&D. So you wouldn't immediately be able to produce, the highest end cars that could actually compete in races with the Ferraris of the world, but you would have a pathway to get there. Again, all of that using our Spark resource token. So that's the mindset. That's where what we are targeting. And again, I want to keep reminding, as I always do, this is going to be a step-by-step approach, right? So all of the car features and the utility and the racing, everything is going to be deployed step by step, and the opportunity for uplanders to create their own brands will show up probably a bit further down the road as we evolve the car economy.
Yeah, great question. Hey, thank you very much, Abstract, for writing in. Blue Rain writes in and asks, and we actually got this question a couple times here in YouTube chat. Will cars require buildings?
I'm not sure I understand the question 100%. So will car manufacturing require buildings? Is that the
or
question?
Ownership? I think it's more ownership. Will you be required to own a building in order to own a car?
No, that will not be a prerequisite. Again, the requirement for you to own an asset in Upland is being an Uplander, and you can again, once you have that car NFT, first of all, it's going to show up in your asset wallet in the Upland app. The only thing is that a car always has to. A car is manifested on top of the Upland map, like other 3D items, like out of the core and structures. And it will always need to be somewhere physically. And when we roll out the car features, it will need to be parked on one of your properties. So you will need to have a property to park your car on. And later on, you'll be able to utilize other players' properties as well to park them on, obviously with the other party's consent. But when we launch cars, you will need a property to park your car on.
Very cool. Great question, Blue Train. We actually got one here on YouTube. Daniel Weinbeck writes in and says, how will cars affect moving around cities? For example, will it change treasure hunting?
Yeah, so again, I think we've addressed it in past AMAs, probably from last year. And again, when we introduce cars first to the metaverse, to Upland, it will not change the kind of like a real life transportation mode within cities, right? It will only be applicable to basically traveling in between cities or racing inside the cities. So when we launch cars, it is not expected to change the way we do treasure hunts or the way we move around within each cities. That will come a bit further down the road. When we kind of like move towards the system of real movement speed, right? Even within cities. That is not though expected to come probably in 2022, probably a bit later.
We saw the racing video that dropped yesterday, or a sneak peek, I guess, at the racing that's coming. Super cool video. If you guys haven't seen it, it's actually over on our YouTube channel. Well, here on our YouTube channel, make sure you go check it out. It'll get you hyped up. General Moore and myself, the first time we saw it, we were screaming. It was amazing.
But you'll hear us
you heard us
a little bit.
Moneybags writes in about racing and asks, will we be able to place bets or wager others in racing?
Yeah, so we're designing car racing to be a skill-based game. It's not going to be kind of like first-person driving, rather projected races based on a couple of elements which we can maybe go into a bit later in this AMA. So the way that you race, you'll be able to either race for fun or you will be able to race tournament style. Basically, so putting some more stake into the race as a driver and as a car owner or a car renter. And then enjoying the benefits if you happen to win the race. There will not be a system in place within Upland to gamble as a spectator on a race, primarily due to the fact that gambling is illegal in most states in the US. Further down the road, again, there are solutions like if you're in Vegas and we have geogating. There are actually solutions for that to materialize. So places in the world where it is legal to gamble. We will probably in the future allow those types of activities. but not in the most of the US currently as regulation permits.
That's super exciting. We do have a couple questions popping up in YouTube here about how block explorers work with the cars. Here's one example. Jorge Glackman asks, will you be able to use both the block explorer and the car? And I think this is a good opportunity to jump into how those two will work together.
Absolutely. So maybe let's kind of like take apart the elements of the race. So in any given race, and by the way, maybe let's take a step back first. The beautiful thing about Upland, the racing system, and it's hard to realize until you actually see. You know, we had some working demos going around yesterday in South by. Any road, any highway in an open city in Upland can become a racetrack. And that opens up to an endless permutations of different tracks that have different achievers and different styles. It could be a cannonball style of a race from one end to the city to the other. It could be a loop around the monument. It could be whatever, drag racing on a highway. And everything can be designed by players, because you can take any basically route in the city and create a race track out of it. And then you'll see that experience in 3D in kind of like in the Upland metaverse. And you know, this is pretty innovative. Like I don't know any style of game that does it that way. And it also creates a technological challenge, because you know, when you see the demos, and people that are not familiar with Upland but are familiar with high-end racing games, they would see it and may not be impressed like with the visual result and the technological feat. But everything is dynamic. Everything basically is projected as from the actual Upland world. Any outdoor decor items, you can imagine billboards around racetracks. You can imagine, you know, the actual buildings, the actual landmarks. You can imagine cool things like, hey, I own an apartment. I have a perspective on my rooftop, so maybe somebody will send their explorer, walk into my apartment, and use the rooftop as a point of view for cameras to spectate the race. These are things that, again, they don't exist in anywhere else, and they're going to exist for the first time in Upland. So having said that, we have several elements when you race in Upland. One of the elements is, you know, most intuitively the actual car, right? What are its abilities? Some cars are going to be faster than others. You can imagine the M Series 1, the Sports Coupe is going to be faster than the M Series 2, the sedan. You can imagine that, you know, the pickup truck may have better off-road abilities, obviously, compared to the Sports Coupe, etc. Some cars will be better at leveraging turns or sharp turns. Some cars will be better at just accelerating on straight pitches. So this is the first element. The second element is the driver, and this is where block explorers come in. So every time when you're going to race, you're going to utilize one of your block explorers for the racing, and the block explorers will be trainable on different traits, such as, you know, how does the driver, how are they good at overtaking or defending versus overtakes? How are they good at keeping calm when they're ahead? Right? What are their skills? Like, how can they take whatever geo forces in turns, etc. And those traits would be trainable. So every time you race, you gain some experience. Depends on how much skin you have in the game. Depends on the outcome of the race, and you'll be able to apply those to those different traits and start kind of like basically increasing the block explorers or drivers speciality in each of these traits. So this is the second element, the block explorer, which is the driver in each race. The third element is the actual racetrack, right? Is it straight? Does it have sharp corners? Is it on-road or off-road, etc.? And then next element is going to be actually your opponents, right? An important part of whether or not you win the race is how your opponents behave in the race. And then the final two parts, which may not be applicable at launch, but they're going to kind of be complemented, is one, consumable add-ons that you can add that are basically specific for one race only. And then the last thing, potentially having things like interventions during the race, which is probably even further down the road. So all of that together, taking into account, we are going to have a system in the backend that will take all of these parameters and then would create a second-by-second projection of the race. So each second that the race goes by, again, there's going to be some random element to it, but randomness is not going to be the most prominent factor in it. But each second, the backend basically calculates what is the progression to the next second. So how does the race look like in the next second of the race? And that creates a situation where, because there are so many different potential outcomes in each second, it becomes something that is impossible to predict, right? And then the skill game becomes basically, okay, so I have a race. Imagine you have a budget of abilities and you need to decide how you spread them between the driver, the car, the power-ons, right? Picking the right driver in the right car in accordance to the opponents and accordance to the track, and then basically seeing the projected race and obviously hoping for you to win and take the prize. So I hope that makes sense. I've been a bit wide about it, but that's basically the gist of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. While we're on races, Green Turtle wrote in on Discord, and he wants to know: will there how are there starting fees for races? Will there be defined racing times, leagues? Will all races cost money, or will some just be for fun?
There will absolutely be races for fun, and again, a lot of the races will be user generated, so it will be up to the players to determine those. Having said that, there are going to be official leagues and official courses, maybe a bit further down the road, that may carry significant prizes, that may have different sponsors, which we are already talking with about, kind of like joining that ecosystem. So you can imagine even that you may have like these let's call them amateur races that maybe serve as qualifiers for who gets to go into those official races. So the opportunities are endless. We're going to have a lot more information as we deploy. I do want to say that we're going to start out, again, we're working in parallel both on car manufacturing, the car NFT, the utility behind cars to be able to move between cities, but also in parallel on racing. So uplanders can expect maybe at some point to get, a playable build of racing. And if they own the car, they may just see projected races for fun, right? Even if there's no stake, just to be able to get their hands on it and just, spectate, create tracks and spectate races in the metaverse, even if they are almost meaningless or there's not a lot of brain behind them. But we still want to deliver that experience, start getting users feedback, and just have the ability for players to have a bit of fun, to see how the upland metaverse becomes truly immersive for the first time.
Yeah, we got this question, speaking of immersion, a couple of times. A lot of players have asked it multiple times, but Ryan Miano asks, will there be integration with racing into VR headsets?
Yeah, so funny enough, I encourage everybody to see the video of our panel from yesterday, because we had our friend Niels from a company called Holoride, and they actually create VR sets that connect to cars. And the amazing thing about it is that they have all sorts of games and applications, and I actually participated in a live demo there inside of Audis that were connected, and it's pretty cool. But then when you marry that with Upland, you can imagine now you can actually drive. You're not going to drive the car, you're going to be at the passenger seat, obviously, and you're going to put up, let's say, a Holoride VR set, and what you're going to see around you is the Upland metaverse instead of the real world. And this is something that will not be doable in any other metaverse, only in Upland, because Upland is mapped to the real world. So you'll be driving around the city and seeing Upland as a VR utility. And you can imagine things like, hey, maybe we have now treasure hunts that are specialized for these types of use cases. So you drive around as passengers looking for treasures. Again, the opportunities are endless, especially when you consider third-party developers and basically just the embracement of the open metaverse. So absolutely, down the road, there are VR experiences that are planned, envisioned, and tightly related also to cars as well.
Yeah, and while we're here, let's just take a minute and clarify. Global Metaventures asks, do we expect racing in Q2 or Q3 of 2022?
Yeah, so absolutely, everybody wants a timeline, and we're trying to share the progress, right? So again, the people that were with us yesterday, they got to see the first playable demo of a race. So it's an actual race that exists. It's going to be in phases. We're going to have more information for you guys as we get nearer to deployment. It's going to happen in step, and it's going to be incremental value that is cast to the ecosystem. So hold tight. Again, we're doing our best to keep you updated in the progress and showing you the stuff as it goes.
Bacon from Discord writes in and asks, will cars need to be refueled at buildings? And I think this might be a good opportunity to talk about that process, the refueling or recharging process of M Motors.
Yeah, so cars are going to be powered by spark. So we need to stake spark to charge to give them a full charge. The more spark you stake, the quicker that charge will happen. The less spark, it will take a bit more time. And again, when we roll this out, again, we're taking baby steps. So there's not going to be a requirement for either gas stations or charging stations or buildings. So you'd be just able to stake your own spark on cars in order to fuel. In the future, obviously, that opens up a lot of opportunities for Metaventures that allow people to utilize your spark in favor of charging. So absolutely, there's a whole economic play around that as well.
We did get Shooting Stop wrote in, and I know we talked about this a little bit, but maybe we can expand on cars on the secondary market. Will we be able to purchase cars on the secondary market? And then accessibility. Will most people be able to purchase a car? And I know we talked about, a Lamborghini obviously is going to be more expensive, stuff like that, but maybe we can review that one more time.
Yeah. So sorry, the first question was
secondary market and cars.
Yeah, so secondary market will be done through showrooms. So these are basically manufactured items resellers, and the concept is going to be very similar to how it will work with outdoor decor items and structure ornaments as well. So basically, these are showrooms for cars that people can just walk in and buy cars. How expensive or cheap it will be, it's hard to say because it will primarily be determined by market forces, especially when the opportunity for anybody to design and manufacture cars in Upland arises. I do expect, again, just because, like always, we hold ourselves to the physical standards of the metaverse. So when we launch the manufacturing plant in Santa Clara, it's not that overnight 10,000 cars will magically appear on the lot. We're going to start actually manufacturing the cars and putting them to the inventory lot. And that may create a situation where the demand for cars at the beginning is much bigger than the supply. So again, if Uplanders are expecting to have access to very cheap cars at the beginning phases where there are very few in supply, maybe the better path is to wait a bit until there is supply catches up. And again, otherwise we'll always find the ways to, even if it's not that affordable at the beginning, to pathways for players to at least have a chance to secure them via competitions or giveaways, etc. So Matt, that's more your domain, so I'm happy to kind of like to hear how this plays out.
Yeah, we're definitely going to take a look at everything that we have and find some creative ways to let players get their hands on cars that aren't just purchasing them. That's something that we always take into consideration when we're releasing different types of NFTs, is like, are there different pathways for people to get these outside of just spending the most money? So absolutely, we're definitely going to be looking at that and finding creative ways to get them into your hands that isn't just purchasing them.
Lucas Masita writes in on YouTube and says, so the gas station marks on properties currently on the maps, they don't have anything to do with cars, correct? And that's a question we get a lot. Hey, I own a gas station property. Is this going to have anything to do with cars in the metaverse?
Yeah, and I keep saying I keep giving the same answer. I get asked that a lot, and basically Upland is a fork of the real world, right? So it's based geographically on the real world, but we want to enable players to. We don't want to put too many restrictions on players on what they can or cannot do. We just want to create the physical rules and the infrastructure to empower players to actually have their creations, run their businesses, play their games. Manage their experiences and services. So the question is, the answer is, we will not enforce any way that a gas station has to be where a gas station in the real world is. You can imagine the hardship, even if we did want that, what happens when a gas station in the real world relocates, right, and closes shop or etc. So they're not going to be these types of restrictions for running Metaventures. This is totally up to the player themselves.
Very good. Mr. Respect has a good question on YouTube chat and says, will we be able to organize tournaments as a player, such as pro and executive players, maybe organizing tournaments for other players in the metaverse?
Are we talking about tournaments for racing or something?
For racing, yes, for racing.
Yeah, so eventually, we want to enable players, again, not just to plot their own tracks and even cultivate them, right? Build stuff around them, put out of the core, and make them visually exciting. Once those are out there and the tracks are laid out, we want to enable players to race however way they see fit. So if they want to do it for fun, and just spending odometer readings and charges, and just kind of like seeing it play out, that's totally doable. If they want to create a low stakes or a high stakes race, also doable. So there is going to be a section that is absolutely user generated, where people can do whichever races they want, and then there's going to be the official races that, and obviously the ones that probably carry large prizes will either need to go through a qualifying or tournament style bracket, or just be a plains high stakes buy-in into the game. So there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of ways that these can be manifested, either through user-generated content or through branded slash sponsored content as well.
Bam Tech writes in and asks, will cars be electric vehicles?
So we, again, M Motors, so all of the M series cars are going to, the metaphor is going to be that they are electric. So we decided that our first, homegrown brand will be electric, but it's totally up to players to decide what is the right metaphor. There's not going to be any difference. I mean, again, there may be performance equivalents in kind of like what are the traits of the car, but there's not going to be any restriction or any real difference. It's more of a metaphoric, and some cars are going to be gas based, because again, you can imagine when we bring in real world brands, a lot of real world brands are still gas driven, and those would still make their way into the metaverse. So there is no restriction on that front. It's more of a metaphor.
Excellent. And then Fabs Blocks writes, are we going to have to pre-order the cars before they drop?
So we are working on mechanics for Metaventures to reserve a spot in second reseller shop for specific players. So that is going to be an opportunity to do these types of engagement with showroom owners. So yeah, there may be a pathway for that. As it pertains to the first release of the very first cars in Upland, we'll just have to wait a bit for more information as we get near.
Very good. So we've talked cars and racing and everything. We did get some questions on other things happening in Upland. So let's shift over to that right now, and then we can jump back to cars as the questions come up. But Hanzilla writes in over on Discord and asks about player community spawn collections. When are we going to learn more about that?
Yeah, so we did have, again, this is something we've been talking about for a while now, and I think as we come closer, so again, I'm circling back, the way that collections are envisioned to spawn for neighborhoods don't only tie to necessarily just the amounts of buildings in place, right? So it's going to be a mix of both buildings, let's call them visual items, or like outdoor decors and stuff like that. The amount of Metaventures operating from each neighborhood, and the amount of uplanders that actually call that neighborhood their home officially as a designated home address. And we want to wait until all those features are in place to give a chance for the neighborhoods to show their true activity value before we start spawning the first collections in the metaverse. So as more of these features are deployed, it will become more relevant for us to basically expose and unveil the actual mathematic models behind what spawns the collection, and then maybe we'll start seeing the first collection spawns.
Excellent. Great question, Henzilla. Thank you very much for writing in. Ogan Gear writes in, and this is a question, I think, for General Mort. General Mort, we reviewed this when we were doing the overview of the roadmap here, but maybe we can go talk about it a little more, review it again. Are there any plans to overhaul the treasure hunting mechanism?
Yeah, absolutely. The first part of that, we have some other ideas in mind that we're still exploring, but the first part of that is what I was talking about earlier, is the update to the treasure hunting tiers. So very soon, we'll basically deploy a change that expands the tiers from 3 to 5. Primary reason for that being that if you guys remember when we talked about our kind of new city tiering framework, we decided that we needed to basically figure out a way to rejig the treasure hunting mechanism to fit that framework better, right? Because now we have these new send fee tiers, have to be able to match that. So basically with those new send fee tiers, we're going to have to kind of change all of the existing send fees that are in the Upland metaverse. Not all of them, but a lot of cities will be adjusted, both higher and lower. And then we will match those treasure hunting tiers to those new send fee tiers. So it is going to be a pretty substantial change. We're also going to be introducing a new rare tier for the highest tier cities. So there is going to be a new opportunity to get some really, really high value treasures in those cities. So it's going to be an exciting change, but definitely we're going to look at more things to continue to augment and enhance the treasure hunting experience in the future.
Very good. Thank you very much, Ogungir, for writing that question in. Shimyo writes in, and we actually had quite a few questions on this in Discord. He asks, what are you doing to improve stability in preparation for large future updates, including city releases?
Absolutely, and again, as we keep growing, we get to new challenges, technological challenges that both have not only to do with the blockchain itself, but also the way we propagate information from the blockchain to our backend. I think one of the major efforts we're doing right now is, up until now, our staging and test environments were not a perfect reflection of production, because actually we produce a real blockchain versus like a jungle net, and how do you basically set up a system that is equivalent to what we see in production. But we are striving to be in a position where we have a system in place that we can actually replay city launches as they happen, and then closer track exactly the technical difficulties, so we have a better chance at solving each and every one of those, and then undoing all of the clots and kind of like seeing where we need to inject more of our proprietary technology to just make it better, make it work better. And again, it's I know sometimes it's a real pain to be in a situation where you're working on a city, you're participating in city release, and you may not get a good user experience in doing so. But I think again the flip side is that you are participating in something totally new, and we are at the pinpoint of the technological movement of NFT and blockchain technology. And again, I can't stress enough that it's fortunate to be able to participate in some of the companies that experience the highest loads in the NFT space and the blockchain space and the metaverse space as they tie together. And we really, really appreciate everybody that still participates, and we are going to be better and better at this as we do future city releases.
Coder writes in and asks about the new life token. He wants to know, how far along are we on that project? And then also, will it be possible to breed different animals in order to create additional items?
Yeah, so this item, the token that we have previously talked about as a vision, is still not on our immediate roadmap. So stay tuned for updates when that is going to come into play. We are still holding tight to that vision. That is also the part of the reasoning why, as we are working now with the first group of outdoor decor owners, manufacturing owners, we are not allowing to manufacture anything that does have trees in it or any sort of life, because that is going to be reserved when that mechanic comes into play. So for now, you can manufacture and we can see inanimate objects in Upland. And in the future, there's going to be life that's going to come in to play as well. So we're looking forward to that, and we'll give you updates as soon as we get to work on it.
Very exciting. Dentist writes in and has an economics question here. He says, Upland originally printed 50 million UPIX to the community pool, which has now grown to 81.3 million UPIX. Why does Upland need to mint new UPIX to the community pool?
Yeah, and I think, first of all, we'll take a step back to the very first roadmap that we put out, white paper that Upland has put out probably 3.5 years ago. And it's amazing. I think it's amazing both how by now it's a bit dated, but how it's still relevant. And in that white paper, we basically laid out the economical foundation of how we can expand basically the UPIX economy with monetary expansion in support of growth. We haven't done that still up until now, but it's going to become probably one of our focuses in 2022. And again, that's going to be a mix of basically utilizing the community pool to compensate Upland as an operator for injecting value and supporting the growth in the current user base, together with some sort of monetary expansion in terms of OpEx as it's required month to month. So we're going to do probably, as we get closer to implementing this, we're going to do an overview of exactly the economical model to support that. But this is basically kicks into play that part of the white paper that we haven't deployed yet, that basically gives Upland, Upland Me Inc., the company that operates the Upland Metaverse and basically creates the value for all stakeholders in the Metaverse, the compensation for giving out those services. So we're going to have a lot more information about that as we get closer to actually deploying those mechanics.
Oh, I apologize, guys. I lost my sound here. 1 second. Hold on 1 second here, everybody. All right. Next question. Quantal Robin writes in and says, with more city launches, cars, Metaventures, and many initiatives in the Upland Metaverse, we've seen many technical failures in the past. Is there a worry that the servers or the EOS blockchain can really sustain all this activity?
Yeah, so is it a worry that it can sustain? No, I don't think so. We absolutely can sustain the current activity, and also the EOS blockchain can as well. Having said that, there is at the end of the day a limit, because again, today, when you look at Upland and when we have 100,000 daily active users, and it can be congested in city launches to create like a big mass of concurrent active users. We are still looking and shooting for a future where there are millions and tens of millions of players. I think in that future, we have a very robust plan for how to start scaling the blockchain element sideways. I'm going to have a lot of more information about that as we approach this the preparations for going there. But in the meantime, we see the current capacity for the blockchain can still serve Upland and its immediate growth plans in the immediate future. But having said that, again, given that a lot of it deals with proprietary technology, both in our backend and in the elements that connect between our backend and the blockchain, we still have a lot of things we can improve to make a better user experience for people, especially with city launches and increased economic activity to allow a more flawless user experience. So again, it is on us to create those improvements and make it better. And I think in the longer term future, there are some very core infrastructural changes we can make to actually have interoperable blockchains to support Upland at a huge scale.
We have about 10 minutes left, everybody. So we're going to try to get through all of your questions. Thank you for being here. And thank you to everybody who wrote in questions. Recon in chat actually asks, so is it M Motors or Meta Motors? Originally, we thought it was Meta Motors. Idan, would you like to clarify?
Yes, the official name is M Motors.
M Motors, there we go. Great question. Thank you very much. TM has an NFLPA question. He says, what are the expectations on interactions with players in NFLPA and Uplanders? What use cases other than blending will Legits have in the future?
I can think of a few, but not ones that I can talk about, unfortunately. But I will say that there's a lot of great features coming up for NFLPA Legits. First and foremost, collections, and then having Legits the ability to digitally be autographed by the players, and also merging and burning mechanics for replica creations. So these are exciting features we're looking forward. We already announced, as most of you know, our 6 NFL player ambassadors to Upland, and we are looking forward to do some interesting stuff with those players.
On NFLPA, this question's for Matt. When will NFLPA collections go live, and will they carry a one-time UpX bonus for completion?
So definitely expect them to arrive before the end of the next season. We are working on it. We don't have a strict timeline just yet, but it definitely will be out before the end of the season. In terms of UpX bonuses and stuff, we'll have more details later. You guys are just gonna have to wait and see how all that stuff is designed.
Not to freak anybody out, Matt. I think you meant before the start of the next season, right?
Sorry, what did I say? I didn't say that. That's what I was thinking. That's not what came out of my mouth. I'm sorry. Yes, before the start of the next season.
Very, very good. I've seen this question a lot, Idan. A lot of people are asking about boats. Are boats ever going to come to the metaverse?
Absolutely, yes.
There you go. There you go, everyone that has asked that question. Actually, boats would be really exciting. VR Chess Master has a really good question, and we've talked about this in terms of businesses before, and for those in the business beta have discussed this. He asks about dealerships. When they come into play in Upland, will the lot size matter? In other words, will larger lots mean more inventory?
Yeah, and yes, and it ties a bit to the manufacturing and inventory management process that we are slowly unveiling, starting with our outdoor decor business beta focus group. So again, in showrooms will need to manage their inventory in the lots that they operate from. So you can imagine, again, it will not necessarily mean that if you have a huge property and a small showroom, you'll be able to display all of your cars in kind of like the storefront per se. But it will be a requirement that anything that shows on the storefront is present at the showroom lot, if that makes sense.
That does. Upland Meta Estate writes in on YouTube and asks, are you planning on adding more support staff to respond to the increasing number of tickets being submitted as a result of rapidly growing user base? The answer is yes. We are expanding the support staff. We're expanding them worldwide, as well as the entire Upland team is expanding across all departments. So great question. Thank you very much, Upland Meta Estate, for that. That basically does us for today. We've gone through a lot of, if not all of the questions. Huge thank you to everybody. Idan, do you have any closing thoughts or ideas that you'd like to leave the community with?
I just want to convey again, I'm currently in Austin in South by Southwest, and you can feel the vibe of the metaverse. The metaverse is everywhere. And also NFT and blockchain technology is everywhere. It's super exciting to be at the junction of this space at this time. And I think like the biggest and most exciting times are ahead of us. So I'm just looking forward, having everybody on board, including all the stakeholders, all of our players, on this ride towards like a future that is, and I want to stress it, the open metaverse.
Yeah, it's very exciting. A lot of people actually, Idan, commented on your shirt, the new the M Motors shirt. A lot of players really like that. Stay tuned, everybody. Swag is coming. We've said that before, but I know we're working on bringing a shop for everybody. So stay tuned for that. Very exciting. Huge thank you, Idan. Thank you, General Mort, for joining us today. Thank you to the community for all of your questions. For everybody that was live here in YouTube, if you haven't yet, make sure you come join us over on Discord. Follow us on social media. The community is everywhere, and it's filled with great people. It's a great place to connect and cooperate and just get to know other Uplanders. So huge thank you. And until next time, everybody.
Wait, I have something to add.
Sorry,
Sorry, I just wanted to mention a couple things. If you guys haven't seen, you can go vote for the Master Builders contest for phase 1. Please go do that now. There's some really awesome submissions from the community. Anybody who's currently designing models, you do still have until tomorrow night to submit for phase 2. So make sure you get that stuff in. Go participate, go support our fellow Uplanders. And then there was one question that I really wanted to address. Somebody asked, why mustache? The answer is why not? Why not?
Why not? Because it's badass. That's why.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Hey, thank you. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you in Upland.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.